A New Age Canadian philosopher, Marshona Dilvayo, very correctly said that roses do not bloom hurriedly, for beauty, like any masterpiece, takes time to blossom. A journey towards healing goes on the same lines, isn't it? Good evening, everybody. My name is Sneha, and I'll be the host for the evening. A big thank you to all our supporters and well-wishers who are here with us and those who have not been here but have sent their good wishes to us. We extend a warm welcome to our chief guest for today, Dr. Zoya Ali Rizvi, Deputy Commissioner, National Health Mission, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Ms. Manisha Biraris, Assistant Commissioner, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of Maharashtra. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking the time out and flying down to Mumbai to be with us in this evening today. We are also honored to have officers from the district level of Ministry of Women and Child Development. We also welcome our board members and advisors, our kind funders, and all our guests for the release of ARPAN's handbook on trauma-informed therapy. This is a really special milestone for us as we share with the world the insights, learnings that we have been providing for trauma-informed therapy to thousands of children and adults in India. ARPAN is India's largest NGO providing child sexual abuse prevention and intervention services, both to children and adults. As a critical stakeholder for state and non-state actors, ARPAN is a leading voice in the space of CSA and uses advocacy and research to push policy and systemic changes in the local, state, and national levels. Since 2007, ARPAN has impacted the lives of over 2 million children and adults. Can we have a huge round of applause for ARPAN, please? Thank you so much. I now invite Dr. Neha Sharma, Senior Manager, Content and Curriculum, Team ARPAN, to introduce the handbook to us.
Thank you, Sneha. It is indeed a beautiful evening today, as we all have gathered here to launch a handbook that has been created by putting together ARPAN's 15 years of experience in supporting the healing journey of survivors of child sexual abuse. This handbook is no less than a work of art. Similar to how an artisan skillfully molds unrefined mud and sculpts it into something that holds deep meaning for the rest of the world, we have tried to sculpt our collective learnings into something meaningful for the world to see, finally developing ARPAN's handbook on trauma-informed therapy for CSA cases. Nelson Mandela once said, "The true character of a society is revealed in how it treats its children." At ARPAN, we believe every child matters. Every child has the right to be safe and protected from sexual abuse and heal from its ill effects. Violence, abuse, and neglect affect children's overall development and can elicit a physical, social, emotional, and sexual impact that can also last lifelong if not healed. Healing takes time. Healing takes effort. It requires empathy, it requires compassion, acceptance, mindfulness, but healing is possible. Over the last decade, ARPAN has extended trauma-informed therapy to over 7,000 children. Trauma-informed therapy recognizes the presence of trauma and acknowledges its role in an individual's life. It's a unique blend of techniques which motivates, validates, collaborates, and fosters healing with an aim to empower survivors. It does so keeping the strength-based approach as its core. It's anchored on the principle that individuals, families, and communities are resourceful and resilient. This experience of providing trauma-informed therapy has helped us formulate standard procedures and guidelines in dealing with various cases of child sexual abuse. We have emulated these procedures and guidelines through this handbook and are happy to share them with other mental health professionals like you. It's a step-by-step process guide intended to share theoretically sound, empirically supported, and clinically accepted therapeutic interventions that Arpan has been using while working in the area of child sexual abuse. This handbook provides a comprehensive understanding of CSA cases and its treatment. It covers the entire spectrum of therapeutic processes, right from identifying abuse to creating a safe space for children to disclose, conducting safety assessments, and ensuring safety, creating a support system for the child, helping them recover from trauma, and empowering them to thrive. It invests creating guidelines for assessment by evaluating safety, emotional impact, and an available support system, keeping the child's need at the center. It focuses on unique characteristics and treatment that child sexual abuse and maltreatment cases call for. The handbook does not stop healing the child and the family. It holds a section specifically on the self-care of a counselor. It recognizes that dealing with CSA cases can leave a counselor emotionally drained and exhausted, therefore the very need for self-care. Why we acknowledge that there is no standard way of dealing with cases and that every professional may have their own unique and special way. While the manual focuses on best practices, it is not intended to be exhaustive or to be treated as a replacement for case-specific clinical judgment. Child sexual abuse cases are complex, which means that mental health professionals must find innovative and creative ways to deal with them by using their clinical expertise and creativity. Flexibility in therapeutic approach and understanding a child's need are crucial for trauma-informed healing process. For instance, being mindful of the treatment choices, socio-cultural dynamics, legal processes, and counselors' familiarity and comfort while using therapeutic modalities are the key. No matter who we are and what we do, today in this hall, what brings us together is our common goal of achieving a world free of child sexual abuse and healing children from residual impact of trauma. And we understand this is not an easy path. This handbook does offer enormous hope that incredible movements of growth and impactful change can occur through trauma-informed therapy. It provides us with insight that healing and prevention are interrelated, and healing can lead to primary prevention by ensuring that there is neither re-victimization nor reoffending. However, it urges us to be persistent and hold on. As in trauma, slow is fast. It doesn't really matter how slow you go, as long as you don't stop. It does gives a direction for setting realistic goals and accepting limitations, to celebrate children's resilience and have faith that if they had the ability to survive these experiences as young children, then they surely have all the resources to recover from the symptoms of those experiences and eventually thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neha, for beautifully capturing how critical this handbook is for prevention and healing of child sexual abuse. Moving on, we now have a small video for our clients sharing how therapy has helped them. Can we please pay the AV and dim the lights?
I had to seek counseling for the abuse I had faced. It was tough to accept it and ask for help, but the sessions have been highly insightful for my overall progress. I used to get conscious about my clothing, but now I wear what I like. I now know that what happened was not my fault, and it has made me feel more empowered. Thank you for making me feel more confident in my skin and have a different outlook.
I feel so privileged to finally have found a trauma-aware therapist in this country. I have never had a therapist with whom I have felt so comfortable to open up about my trauma. I can see myself grow from self-destruction and sabotaging towards self-awareness and growth, which wouldn't have been possible without your support and words of kindness.
As a mother, there's nothing better than watching your child successfully deal with any struggle he has in life and come out stronger. And with your assistance in therapy, my son has been able to do just that.
I never thought that joining a therapy session could be so helpful to solve many issues. I feel like it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I learned a lot through this journey. It helped me to change my negative thoughts and brought me on the path of positivity.
I was in a condition where I was doing nothing but just overthinking, crying, and sleeping most of the time. I randomly called the Arpan helpline number. I didn't expect anything, but it turned out to be extremely helpful. Every word of the counselor stuck to my mind, and from the first day itself, my mindset, routine, and way of handling the situation started changing gradually. My life got back on track of positivity again. These sessions changed my life a lot.
I'm sure all of you must be as moved as I am. I'm so glad that we have been a part of their healing journeys. And now, it's the time to introduce our chief guest for the evening, Dr. Zoya Ali Rizvi, Deputy Commissioner, National Health Mission, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. She is a commendable and hardworking doctor, an administrator having vast experience working in the health ministry for more than 2 decades, an alumnus and gold medalist from King George Medical College, Lucknow, and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She is currently heading the Rashtriya Kishor Swasthya Karyakram, which deals with promotive and preventive healthcare of adolescents in facilities, schools, and communities. She also looked after the recently launched School Health and Wellness Program under Ayushman Bharat to impart life skills in our school-going children and further strengthen the partnership between healthcare providers and teachers. We are honored to have your presence, ma'am, today. Thank you so much. May I please request you to come on stage for the keynote address.
Good evening, everybody. I would just like to begin by saying it's indeed an honor to be present among such a special group of people, and I thank Arpan for getting us across. And needless to say that Arpan has been an integral part now during COVID last 2 years. They have really supported the ministry in carrying out a lot of trainings of our own healthcare providers, be it the counselors, the medical officers, and also in the school health and wellness program. So I want to basically begin what I want to say by saying is that you all may be aware that 1 in 5 person in the world is an Indian, and 1 in 5 Indian is an adolescent. So we have a huge demographic dividend which we are looking at in the country, which is India. And any intervention which we plan for children or adolescents will help them stay healthy and happy as they are as children and adolescents, grow up to be healthy adults, and if they so want to have children, then they will be healthy parents who will look after healthy children. So we are looking at investing in this young age group as a triple dividend. You invest now and you reap 3 times benefit. So having said that, the issue of child sexual abuse which was brought out, I just want to say a couple of points regarding that. That is an issue like I think any other abuse which we see in the society is underreported, under-recognized, under-accepted, under-investigated, under-punished, and under-followed up. So this is one issue which has to be brought to the forefront while reporting it, recognizing it, accepting it, and of course healing is a very important part of follow-up. So that is something which is very important, which Arpan has taken a huge step towards working on this module, on this whole training manual. And just to give a background of the data, most of you must be aware of the study which happened way back in 2007 by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, in which the study was carried out. Over 12,447 children were interviewed, and more than 53% of them reported to be sexually abused. So that's more than half of the children who were interviewed. And even if we take it from there, right now you know that the latest report which the National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, has published 2021, it says that 62,186 cases of sexual abuse have been reported in 1 year, which is about 42% of all the cases. So I think the number of sexual abuse per se is not really going down. So it is high time that we press on and do whatever we can as, I would say, a ministry, as a government, as parents, as teachers, as society members, as caregivers. I think whatever head we can do work on this will be one extra head which is needed. And another important thing which I think most of you are aware, of course, is that majority of the perpetrators are, of course, known to the young person who has been abused. 97% of cases were known to the perpetrators were known to the victim. And the effect, which was mentioned, but I'd just like to reiterate that the effect is not just limited to, but may lead to, we know, PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, risky sexual behaviors, emotional instabilities, besides the already existing stigma which is there, the helplessness, the betrayal. So it is a multi-effect which happens. It is not just one part of the body which is affected, it is the body, the surrounding, the whole family life, the education, your work, everything is affected. And so with that, and like was mentioned, it's a lifelong effect. So if we don't support healing, we're looking at lifelong effect of any kind of trauma or sexual abuse a child faces now, who may be able, and once healing happens, the child as an adult or as later on, because most of us know that even when the person is abused, they may come after 1 year, after 5 years, after 10 years, after 40 years also people come ahead. So that is when they understand, they accept, and then they start healing. So it is important to work on the healing. And just to mention what the government is, a bit of what we hope to do is that our work looks at what preventing child sexual abuse, adolescent sexual abuse. We look at supporting those who have experienced sexual abuse. We work to support the parents of the sexually abused children, and of course to train the healthcare providers to support the children who have been sexually abused. Now, one major part of this management is the prevention of child sexual abuse, which I think the video has shown the healing, but earlier videos shown how good a preventive strategy can help. And that can be, prevention can be what? By informing. So we need to inform not just the children in schools, which was shown in the video, we need to inform the teachers also who are taking part, the parents also have to be involved, the community members have to be involved, the healthcare providers also have to be involved, because a lot of outreach activities happens by the healthcare givers in various states. So, the modalities can be different, but a lot of outreach activity happens by the medical officer, by the counselor who goes for health talk. And once you start talking about it, then you start addressing it. When you start addressing it, then the healing starts. So it has to start by talking within the community, within the schools, within parents group, within healthcare providers group. We should not feel that the medical officer or the counselor has not been affected, because I'm quite sure many of them themselves may have been sexually abused. So it's for them to accept as a healthcare provider that, okay, this has happened, I need to address this, and then train themselves so that they help the other persons who have been exposed. Keeping up with the training which I just mentioned is that ARPAN has been supporting us. So we have supported in the training of the health and wellness ambassadors. What was mentioned is the school health and wellness program. In fact, we have now trained more than 2.35 lakh teachers across 33 states. An essential part of the master trainers was supported by ARPAN. So I think that is a very crucial step through which gradually we aim to improve the awareness, knowledge-seeking behavior of all our school teachers. So having said in education, so otherwise even with the adolescent counselors and the ANMs and the medical officers now, in fact currently we are having master trainers in Government of India, which again the session on prevention of injuries and violence and child sexual abuse has been supported by ARPAN. So I'm saying that we have to first recognize that every person who is providing support, who needs to be informed, has to start right now. And I think that's a big step which they have taken and which the government is also supporting, is to recognize that any healthcare provider should be informed about it. So that is some step which is happening. And I would really, it was very impressive what Neha presented about the handbook. And I would say this handbook is a very welcome step, because it's not just build some kind of relationship between child and the parent, or the child or adolescent and the therapist, but it also supports the development of emotional recognition, the regulation of skills for anxiety, relaxation practices, and fosters feeling of safety and healing, especially from the challenge, from the feelings, the challenging memories and feelings as the person grows older. So I think this is a very positive thing which Arpan has done. And this handbook will support our service providers and community members to build what we are looking at, a trauma-informed environment across various levels and areas, not just health, but in communities and schools. And I would just like to end by congratulating Arpan and acknowledging all, I think, the hard and relentless work which has happened over the last 2 years, 3 years almost, in writing this manual. And I would also like to say that having met so many of your workers, I would say we'll expect so much more, because there's such passionate and dedicated staff I have interacted with today. It's really an honor to be here interacting with so many of you, and I look forward to so much more support material from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Zoya, for these encouraging words, as well as sharing your thoughts on the need of trauma-informed therapy and how this handbook is going to help. I request you to please remain on stage, as the moment has come to release the handbook, for which I invite Ms. Manisha Biraris, Assistant Commissioner, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of Maharashtra, Ms. Sonali Gupta, Practical Clinical Psychologist, Ms. Pooja Taparia, Founder and CEO at Arpan. Sure, I request all the dignitaries on the stage to unveil Arpan's handbook on trauma-informed therapy for CSA cases. Huge round of applause, everybody. I also invite the senior leadership of Arpan to please come on stage and join the movement. Dr. Manjeer Mukherjee, Ms. Nehal Parekh, Mr. Himesh Sheth, Ms. Priya Bhargav, Ms. Raji Devnath Menon, and Mr. Ishan Chaudhary. Keep the claps going on, guys. Your respective seats, and our dignitaries to please be seated for the panel discussion. I also invite Ms. Anupriya Das Singh, Senior Manager, Healing Services at Arpan, on stage. Now that we have our panel together, I'm honored to introduce our esteemed panelists to all of you all. Dr. Zoya Ali Rizvi, we have already introduced. Ms. Manisha Biraris. Ms. Manisha Biraris has served the Education Department from 2003 to 2011 as a superintendent. In 2011, she joined the Women and Child Development Department as a Child Development Project Officer and is currently serving as an Assistant Commissioner and Program Manager. Ms. Sonali Gupta is one of India's leading clinical psychologists with 18 years of experience. She's an author of a book, Anxiety, Overcome It and Live Without Fear, published by HarperCollins. Besides working as a psychotherapist, she works as a consultant to schools, NGOs, and corporates to build emotionally safe spaces and give mental health a good name. Ms. Anupriya Das Singh, a senior manager at Healing Services at Arpan with more than 17 years of experience in clinical practice. She is a certified cognitive behavior therapist, art-based therapist, EMDR therapist, and dance-based therapist. She has effectively trained groups of students, mental health professionals, and healthcare workers in trauma counseling. And our moderator, Ms. Pooja Taparia, the founder and CEO of Arpan. A modern-day entrepreneur, she has built Arpan to become India's largest non-profit organization as a globally recognized thought leader in the space of child sexual abuse prevention and intervention. Over 16 years, impacting 2 million children and adults. So, now we are set for a panel discussion for the evening. I please request Ms. Pooja Taparia to take the lead.
Right. Thank you, Sneha. I'm so excited. And so excited and happy because all of you have made the time to be here. So thank you once again for joining this special occasion for us, with us. Let's dive in. Anupriya, we'll start with you. Yeah? So at Arpan, we've been supporting the healing journey of so many survivors of child sexual abuse. Do you want to talk to us about what have been some incredible moments of change that you have seen and what has left a deep impact for you?
Yeah, so the healing journey has always been incredible for the processes. Healing seems to be very, very powerful. It tends to provide a safe space to the child, helps the child understand that it's not their fault, and allows to create a support system very beautifully.
Absolutely, I can so completely relate to that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really powerful in the shift one can see because of therapy and actual healing happen. Sonali, you've created a toolkit to support children's mental well-being, and organizations and schools are using it. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and how does it work towards enhancing children's emotional and mental well-being?
Firstly, thank you for having me and congratulations on the resource book and all the work you do. I think I'll just start with what Dr. Zoya mentioned. I recently worked with a client who I've been working for a couple of years, and the client recently mentioned about abuse. The client was 63 years old, and the abuse had happened when the client was 6. And after 57 years, the client was talking about it for the first time. And just taking from there, I think the entire idea of a toolkit is two-way, right? Just imagine for 57 years to live with the pain that you brought it upon yourself. Nobody knows. You have grandchildren now. You're worried for their safety. You also feel that, maybe you brought it upon yourself and it was manifesting in a lot of situations in the context of weight issues, all of it. And now, when I think about the toolkit in the last few years, the idea is twofold. I think one is the preventive work. The second is also building a safe space where we can begin to recognize what safety feels like for all our children. And I think as teachers, as mental health professionals, just like Anupriya mentioned, I think we owe it to our children to build a safe world, right? So I think one is the preventive bit. The other is also, talking about that when trauma, when abuse has happened, there's also a lot that continues, right? The startle response. Like a child I worked with said, जब भी वो secret word सुनती हूँ ना, मेरे को ऐसे लगता है मैं गिर जाऊँगी. There are words which are associated with trauma, right? Our trauma is our memories. Like I remember this 10-year-old who said कि मैं washroom नहीं जाती कभी स्कूल में और अभी बहुत साल हो गए कि नहीं जाती हूँ स्कूल में. So one, the recognition that after abuse has happened, trauma has happened, there are so many associations. One is the preventive work. The other is how do we continue to work with our children emotionally, socially. I think also, when we make abuse only about the perpetrator and the child, we are missing the fact what is our responsibility. And like Dr. Zoya mentioned, I think the toolkits, whether the corporates do it, schools do it, it's a reminder that each one of us, even if we do, I don't think in our lifetime it will be enough. Honestly, all of us put together here can say this. The work is so much that if all of us in the room do it, it's still not going to be enough, right? So the idea is to talk about it, whether it's the families. Like, moms, when you work with children, will say, or the father will say, since the perpetrator is known, कि मैं क्या बोलूँ मेरे को समझ नहीं आता. वो मतलब मेरी बहन थी जिसने किया है. And, where it has happened with a parent, I think they don't know, so the work is also multifaceted. So I think the idea of a toolkit is to work across what the school can do, what parents can do, what the community can do, and how can you continually work with the child to provide safety physically, emotionally, psychologically, but also help them still form their own community, like Anupriya said, right? Every child who has a toolkit, whether it's how do you self-soothe at the end of the day, right? How do you regulate your own self? And we often forget, right, that children have the wisdom, the body carries the wisdom. We just need to just help children with it, and children will tap into it, right? Like, we aren't doing anything special. The body already has the wisdom. And I think the toolkit is just a way to touch upon the wisdom which exists. I think just the last point, I think the actual work, while we are talking in English, वो हिंदी बाकी सारी लैंग्वेजेस में होना चाहिए ना. आप हम कितना भी इंग्लिश में काम कर लें इन अ कंट्री लाइक आवर्स, वो काम कभी पूरा नहीं होने वाला है. There is a reality in every village, every small, city, and जो organization schools के साथ काम है, the point is to translate it in as many languages as possible, so that it reaches the people who it needs to, including the doctors at the hospitals, who are examining, checking all of it. Yes, thank you.
So true. Thank you, Sonali. And the toolkit sounds absolutely wonderful, and I so agree with you, Dr. Zoya, that working with adults is very critical. Whether it's making parents and teachers more aware, whether it's making the ecosystem more aware, because no child can be per se responsible for protecting children, protecting him or herself. It's the ecosystem, the primary caregivers that need to support the child. So I think it's really important that, we all recognize that as caregivers, as professionals, how are we enabling the ecosystem to be more empowered as we continue to focus on the healing journeys of whether it's child or adult survivors. And even as they go through that journey, I think the role, like you mentioned, about psychoeducating the immediate support system so that the healing journey is actually healing. Otherwise, it can be very difficult, and something that we've seen when we work with children as well. So wonderful. That was lovely to hear from you, Sonali. Thank you. Manisha ma'am, we've been doing so much work. WCD has been doing work in childcare institutions. How do you think we are addressing the mental health needs of children in care and protection and children in conflict with law?
In WCD, we are working with the children with CNCP and CCL. And while working with these children, as you know, it's very difficult to address their issues because these children came from very different situations. Because we, in CNCP child, we have the child which is of CSA, which may be of child marriage, which may be of poor condition. There are so many different situations. So it's very difficult to address their issues. But we have the counselors which are in panel with us. They are working with us. They are salarized counselors, government in all government institutions. And also we have a counselor with DCP unit. This is District Child Protection Unit in every district. And we have one counselor there. And this counselor is facilitating with both CNCP children and CCL children. CCL children's issues are very big because they are conflict with law. They came from various different situations. Firstly, they are CNCP, and I think when they are CNCP, means child in need and care and protection, I think they didn't get any good attention, and that's why they became CCL child. जब उनको ज़रूरत थी, जब उनके प्रॉब्लम्स थे, वो प्रॉब्लम्स उनके ध्यान नहीं दिए गए, इसीलिए वो CCL बने, इसीलिए उनसे कुछ ना कुछ गुनाह जो है या छोटी मोटी गलती जो है वो उनसे हो गई है. सो उनको वहाँ से निकालने के लिए हमें थोड़ा ज़्यादा काम करना पड़ता है. जैसे अलग अलग थेरेपीज़ है जो अनुप्रिया कर रही है उस तरीके की थेरेपीज़ की हमें ज़रूरत होती है। तो टाइम टू टाइम हम आप जैसे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ काम करके वो जो उनको जो सहायता करनी है वो करते हैं। बीच में हमने हम होंगे कामयाब प्रोग्राम किया था जो CCL बच्चों के साथ किया था। हमने उनको अलग अलग जो थेरेपीज़ है, डांस थेरेपी है, सिंगिंग थेरेपी, पेंटिंग थेरेपी, ये दिया। एंड आफ्टर दिस थेरेपी, आफ्टर दिस सेशंस, I attended the last program, and when the children say their own views for this program, I was really happy and saw कि नहीं, ये program हमें regularly करना पड़ेगा, and that's why now we are thinking to take the therapist on our board and to regularize the program in our observation homes, because these children need to get out their anger, their उनका जो डर है वो उनका बाहर आना बहुत ज़रूरी है, और वो थेरेपीज़ के बिना नहीं होने वाला है. ओनली काउंसलिंग विल नॉट हेल्प फॉर दिस, and that's why we need the special therapists there also. So we have counselors. The counselors are trained by NIMHANS also, and the NIMHANS training was really very good. It get a very big difference in our counselors' thoughts, and they help us in our COVID situation children. As you know, COVID, it brings a very difficult situation to all over world, and who affects this are the children. In Maharashtra, there are near about 849 children who lost both parents, and these 849 children, we counsel them with the help of these our counselors who trained by NIMHANS, and they are supported by IPS West Zone, Indian Psychiatric Society West Zone. So it is a very good project which is carried out in our Honorable Secretary Ma'am and our Commissioners guidance, and it brings a very big difference. Means we know COVID situation, and we know they lost both parents, and all जिस जब सब लोगों की उनको दया मिलती है, क्योंकि दोनों माँ बाप नहीं हैं, तो वो सिचुएशन शुरुआत में रहती है. उसके बाद जैसे जैसे दिन पिघलते हैं और जैसे जैसे लोगों को ये पता चला कि जो हमसे फंड्स आने वाले हैं वो फंड्स वो बच्चों को मिलने वाले हैं, बिकॉज वी गिवन देम 5 लाख रुपीज़, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हैड गिवन देम 10 लाख रुपीज़, बट वी इन्वेस्टेड दिस अमाउंट विथ आवर ऑफिसर्स एंड द चिल्ड्रंस अकाउंट, एंड वी आर गोइंग टू गिव दिस फुल अमाउंट आफ्टर, मीन्स महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू गिव दिस आफ्टर 18 years, and central government's money will be given them after 23 years. And when relatives come to know this thing, then that दया and वो सब भाग गया. और फिर उसके बाद उन बच्चों के ऊपर मतलब बहुत जगह पे ऐसे हुआ कि उन निग्लेक्शन जो है वो दिखाई दिया. तो at that time we bring these children to our CCI. Near about 43 children are in our CCI. We are taking care of them, and it helps, the counselors counseling helps us for this. तो इसीलिए मैं मानती हूँ कि जो काउंसलिंग डिपार्टमेंट के तरफ से किया गया है, मीन्स वी आर नॉट वर्किंग ओनली विथ आवर चिल्ड्रंस दोज हु आर इन इंस्टीट्यूट, बट वी आर वर्किंग विथ द चिल्ड्रन दोज हु आर इन community also, and it's a big challenge for us, and so it's not the thing, we have the capacity, we have doing it with our staff, but we need all yours and your like NGOs support also.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that's been wonderful work that the WCD has been doing. Really inspired to see that you really took it upon yourselves to address the mental and emotional well-being of children. And मुझे आपकी एक बात बहुत अच्छी लगी जो आपने कहा कि जो child in need of care and protection hai, so children in need of care and protection are the ones who are in the institution, who are largely being victims or vulnerable to abuse or violence, and children in conflict with law are the ones who are perpetrators. In some way they've inflicted some form of violence. And आपने जो वो बात की कि
जो बच्चा जिसको केयर और प्रोटेक्शन एक्चुअली नहीं मिला या जिसको केयर प्रोटेक्शन की एक्चुअली ज़रूरत थी पर हेल्प नहीं मिली, वो बच्चा चिल्ड्रन इन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट विथ लॉ फिर बन जाता है. क्योंकि इफ़ वी आर टाइमली नॉट हेल्पिंग चिल्ड्रन, then they will tend to, offend in some manner. So I thought that's a beautiful takeaway in what you said, ma'am. क्योंकि वाकई में वो सही बात है. And research भी हमको actually बताता है कि 15 to 20% of people who've experienced childhood sexual abuse tend to grow up and offend. We've also seen that most perpetrators are in their adolescent age. Hence, to work with adolescents is extremely critical. And as much as you were saying about this, Dr. Zoya as well, the need for it, and it was a beautiful keynote address that you made. How do you think we are addressing the safety and well-being of children through the government initiatives that the ministry is running?
Okay. Like I will mention a bit in that, is that first is to recognize that child sexual abuse exists, right? So what happened during the COVID lockdown, we got a lot of reports of violence at home, the children facing abuse, and that's where we thought of you. Because we have worked with ARPAN in creation of the curriculum for school health and wellness program with NCRT, and that's where we realized that it's a part of the curriculum, but that's in schools, right? So for that, the school has to be open, the teachers have to be trained. So what are we missing? We're missing the healthcare providers, and that's where we kind of requested you, so that when we are doing the training of our own counselors, we trained about 2,100 odd counselors during the lockdown only, and majority of the complaints which the counselors had from young children were related to sexual health or events or violence. It was a very common thing. So that I think intervention which we planned during the lockdown of training counselors had a very good uptake from all the states. Coming from that, when we saw the success of that, we added child sexual abuse as a part of training of the medical officers also, because since the awareness will come from schools, our healthcare providers should be aware that this is something which they will be expected to support, to look out for, and to even guide the child who has faced abuse and the parents if they so come. So if their awareness is in schools and the schools start these sessions in their own schools, so we are, I would say, not hoping, but we would really look forward to the sessions in school translating into greater visits to the counselors and to the healthcare providers. Hence, it was important for us to even train these people so that they are not kind of blindsided and they say, we've had more cases, but we have never been trained by the government. So that is something which I think there was a call just taken by the government, that we need to improve capacities, information, give the material, and a lot of material. We used your material only, in fact, ARPAN material. We used to create awareness, and this material was also shared last year when we had the Child Safety Week. So we sent the entire set of material to all the states, and I think about 8-10 of them observed.
13 of them.
13, okay, she knows. The 13 states observed this whole entire week with events. In fact, we involved faith, we involved church. Church events took place in Meghalaya, in Manipur, they took place. In other places, college events took place, and in PHCs and CHCs. So I would say it was across community. So that is what we want to keep building. And this is something I would say, as your material yourself is improving every year, you're innovating yourself. So I would request that, because this training is something which we give to our healthcare providers every year it happens. So if we can, you can continue the support. So it will be good for our own, I think, health providers only. And one thing which I remember, which Neha mentioned, I think last training which she was there, is that every healthcare provider should believe the child. If the child says that this has happened to me, you must believe. So that is the first step we should tell all our providers, that never doubt a child. So that, I believe, is a very important thing which we have learned from your organization, is that, that is, I think, the first step. If you believe, then only you will accept and you start addressing it. If you keep saying, oh, bacha, she doesn't know, or they don't know, or let's call the parents, so you're undermining the entire effort the child has actually brought forward to speak. So that, I think, is the first step which I think Neha addressed in the training last time. When a lot of medical officers said, what if the child is lying? So she said, the child doesn't lie, the child doesn't have the capacity at a young age to kind of create a whole history, a whole story, So first step is to believe. And that, I think, is a very important step which we want to inculcate in all our healthcare providers. You believe a child, and then let's take it from there.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah, definitely a round of applause.
I think for both Dr. Zoya, the Health Ministry, and Manisha Ma'am, Women and Child Development, I think sometimes we all tend to be cynic about what the government is doing, but I think today, I'm sure to all of you, it's been very obvious about how much the government at the local, state, and national level actually has been very proactive to do their job. Yes, there are limitations क्योंकि इनके challenges होते हैं. There are logistical issues. It's sometimes about approval or funding or a lot of other things. But I've always seen in these so many years of experience, whenever we've met a person from the government, nobody has ever said कि नहीं आप जो बोल रहे हैं doesn't make sense, इसकी ज़रूरत नहीं है. Everybody has always said, this is important, we need to do something about it, let's talk about it. And I think that's kudos to all of you and to people like you who've been so proactive. You've taken the opportunities through those challenges that you have of working in the system, because we know that navigating the system is not an easy one. But really kudos to you for doing that and for personally driving this in some way, right? Just making sure that these things happen. So really congratulations to both of you. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. And it's absolutely fun and exciting to work with partners such as you, because we know that we're being heard. You are listening. Even the project that we did with WCD on the grief counseling work since last year. So Arpan responded to one of the world's largest humanitarian crises we saw, right? COVID. I don't think any of us will ever forget it. You'll probably live 80, 100 years, I don't know, and we look back at COVID and say like, oh my God, like what that time was, right? And Arpan decided we'd already opened up our helpline to mental health support to anybody who needed it. But then we partnered with WCD. They were very keen to provide therapy and counseling to children who lost their parents. And kudos to our healing team. All our counselors got trained in grief counseling. Because grief hasn't been as much a core part of our work. With, of course, issues of abuse, you do address it. But it was not a core part of our work. And so Anupriya and Namrata, they all trained our counselors. And we went on to do counseling with 500 children over the last 1 year. It was huge, really. And some of the stories were so heartwarming and touching. I think the kind of change that we could see, we had to also work with the single parent, because again, like we said, it's just not enough to work with the child. It's very important to work with the ecosystem of the child as well. Only then can healing can happen in its completeness. But this is not easy work, right, Anupriya? And I'm just wondering if you want to talk about what challenges have you seen, providing therapy, and what have been some learnings? What would be your message to the therapists here today? And I know we have a lot of therapists here, like, right? Hands up for all the counselors and therapists who are here today. Like, so many of us. Wow. Yeah, and a big round of applause to all of you. Very special and difficult work that you do. So yeah. What insights would you have to share?
Yes, so healing journey, how much ever beautiful it is, it doesn't come without challenges. We all know that, we all being therapists. So if we see very specifically trauma-informed therapeutic process, any child or adult who's gone through severe or any kind of traumatic experience might need being unique, might need a different therapeutic intervention all the time. So a child might do well with EMDR, and maybe another child or an adult would require art-based intervention in the beginning of the therapeutic process to stabilize. And the third adult might do much well with body-based work or somatic experiencing. Now, it is a very important part to recognize it on time and help the client with the right kind of intervention. And yes, it's not easy because if not done on time, the whole therapeutic process becomes very prolonged and might not give desired results. So this is a challenge, and in order to mitigate this kind of a thing, what we tend to do is we encourage the counselors to get trained in all as much as possible, specifically in trauma-focused intervention. Along with that, we try to every week supervise all the counselors with the weekly challenges, so that if there is any such situation that the counselor is facing, is intervened in that moment itself. So constant skill building is what I see as a mitigation of this constant concern that tends to come up. This is not only the one challenge, there are a few more I would want to talk to you about. Another challenge very prominently that we face is sometimes working with the support system and caregivers. What tends to happen is the right kind of response given by the caregiver tends to heal the child. And if not given on time, or if the right response is not provided to the child, it might get traumatic for the child. The earlier case example that I shared, if the parent responds or caregiver responds in a way that I believe you, I understand you, you would see trust building up and the child getting healed slowly, bit by bit. So this is somewhere we face where the response, if the response doesn't come in an appropriate way, the healing process becomes lengthier because there is a lot more one has to do, a counselor has to work with the child. Now, in order to mitigate that, we constantly focus on awareness sessions. ARPAN has the awareness session with the parents to help them see what child sexual abuse can actually cause, what may not look very apparent, might have very deep level impact. We have specialized sessions with the family members to help them understand how to handle a disclosure if there is some disclosure happening, just to handle the future situations better. So this is, in a way, our mitigation to this particular kind of challenge. And one particular logistical challenge that we face is children going on long leaves or getting transferred to their native, and we trying to find them but not being able to find them because of the lost contact. A lot of perseverance by the counselors is seen and needed to track the child and talk to the family members. Can we continue with online processes? One of the ways that we have seen during pandemic was this challenge. So we understood and we tried to understand from the caregivers beforehand, is there any plan for a long leave? What can we do? Can we connect online? Can we have the right contact details so that we meet you back? So that's how we have been trying to mitigate this challenge, but it's there, yeah.
Lovely. I think that those were so many challenges, and I'm sure everybody sitting who is a therapist could be like, yeah, I mean, I relate to that, right? So thank you for elaborating on that, Anupriya. And Sonali, same question for you. I mean, you've worked so much with adult survivors of child sexual abuse. What have been your learnings and insights, and what message would you have for fellow therapists here today?
I think the first one, from a practical perspective, when a lot of adult clients, there are times when they may reach out because of abuse which happened years back. A lot of times they don't reach out for therapy just for that. The primary issue may be something else. And there are times where they are in therapy and in the session, the memories may get evoked. So one, I think no matter how many years of practice you have, it may be very important to know when the memories have gotten evoked in the session, in the therapy session, because how do you manage it? When your client freezes, right? If you're still doing online, how do you manage when the client just freezes during the session? Also, if you have your practice, I can tell you just from a practical standpoint, आप इलेक्ट्रॉल रखो, बिस्किट्स रखो, पानी रखो, आपके पास सब वो रूम में होना चाहिए. There are people I have worked with who while talking have fainted. Just while talking, अब वो नहीं है आपके पास कुछ भी आप एक रूम में कर रहे हो, it's very hard sometimes, and a lot of us work in setups कि जहाँ पे कोई staff नहीं है बाहर, खाली आपका कमरा है और आपका client है. So one, that practically. Secondly, in India, contracting, not everybody follows the rule of contracting, which we were discussing some time back also. Particularly when memories are opening up for clients, it may be a good idea when you start the process to start asking for a couple of, people's number who they trust. It could be a family member, it could be only friends, family of choice. For you to have some contact person's number already there for you. You don't know when the information would, come through. Like for a client, the client who felt dizzy and then did faint at the clinic, we did have the information, I did have the information. So I had to call a family member after the consent of the client, who was an older adult, way older, but we didn't mention anything. But you need to have access to that information before. I think also, no matter how much work you have done with the client, and I'll choose an example here. There's somebody I worked with for 5 years, and the person used to do consistent sessions. At the end of, about 4 and 5, I said the work is done. Ab therapy, we should wrap it up. We should pause it or terminate it. And I said, think about it, give it some time, and we'll figure what to do. And the client kept saying, ki nahi, I'm not ready to terminate it as of now. Although the client had worked for 5 years, we had almost weekly sessions. So this is long-term therapy, right? 5 years is a very long time. The last, I said, we'll do a couple of sessions and let's review everything. The client said, so this is a 50-year-old man I'm talking about, and I have consent, so with the consent I'm speaking. He said, जब मैं 15 साल का था, कुछ हुआ था, मुझे पता नहीं वो क्या था. And the last session talked about the abuse. And, it just felt like, okay, 5 years, the first reaction was, oh, did I do something wrong? Did the client not trust me? The client has not shared for 5 years. What was I doing wrong? So A was my own talk, which I had to manage. And I've realized now that it's the client's readiness. No matter how much they trust you, it needs to feel right in their bodies and in their mind to have a vocabulary. Also with adolescent, people who've been abused in their adolescence, they bring that particular pattern to it where they say, pata nahi wo maine kuch kiya, kya hua, I was, the other person was 16, I was 12. And it's very important to listen and as you said, believe them, right? Believe, stay with their story. People will tell you their stories when they are ready. It's not about you doing it wrong, but your biggest tool is the trust with the client. It's not any technique. After 18 years, 20 साल पहले I was taught कि the trust is everything. अब 18 years के बाद लगता है trust is everything. Your trust is your real tool at the end of it. And your clients will work through it. I think the last bit, when and where and whom the client opens up to, how memories are evoked for you, it's so unique that we can't have a manual all the time for it. It's so allow for that subjectivity, and no matter how old you are, please have supervision. Please have supervision. I have had supervision for 18 years, and I think that's the best thing that has helped me through. No matter how old you are, please do it. You should not give up on it. It's a huge way of regulating your own self. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So pertinent, Sonali, and so clear. And between Anupriya and Sonali, we've had such great insights and learnings, right? I particularly also liked about the fact that you spoke about supervision. At Arpan, all our counselors undergo supervision all the time for all our cases. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because very often we don't realize how important it can be to get another perspective to a case. Like I very often hear them say कि हम stuck feel कर रहे हैं, ऐसा लग रहा है ये client आगे move ही नहीं हो रहा है, वो shift ही नहीं हो रहा है, what do we do? And then if you land up talking to even peers, it makes a huge difference because somebody can give you an idea and say, oh, why don't you try this? Arpan, for almost 9 years, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, but we ran a study group just for therapists, all external therapists, also included with Arpan therapists. And every 2 months, they would come together, and Dr. Rani Raute was the facilitator, and there would be a lot of peer sharing. Every therapist would present a case, and there would be a lot of discussion on it. So I think these spaces of creating peer learning or having supervision just strengthens our journey of learning and finding new ways of dealing with it. And, another point that you made, Sonali, about the handbook, and we can all read, we can all get some insights, but of course, when you sit in front of the client, it's you and the client. And so it's just important about how you connect and that trust that is there. And I agree with Anupriya on the fact that we need to have tools as well, because it's really important to know what's going to work, because each client is different. For me, for instance, EMDR worked beautifully. I just thought that was so powerful because, it just worked so beautifully, so quickly. But not for everybody EMDR might work. It's for somebody, an arts-based therapy might work, or some other techniques might work, CBT. I mean, there are so many. But yeah, it's just so important, like you were saying earlier, to keep ourselves informed, get trained, read, so that we are all learning along the way. So thank you. Those were wonderful insights. Manisha ma'am, I know WCD is so committed to, invest in the mental and emotional well-being of children. आपने थोड़ी देर पहले बताया, कोविड के समय आप लोगों ने इतना काम किया, अर्पण ने आपके साथ मिलके किया, आप निम्हान से भी ट्रेनिंग ले रहे हैं. What is the plan now? Like, how do you think this is going to take your plans ahead, knowing that now we're all, the whole world's talking about mental health in these last 2 years, right? So, ma'am, कुछ insights कि अब क्या plans हैं, क्या सोच रहे हैं?
जी, जैसे मैंने बोला कि हम लोग 2 तरह के बच्चों के साथ काम कर रहे हैं. एक तो जो हमारे साथ हमारे CCI में रहते हैं, और दूसरे जो हमारे साथ कम्युनिटी में रहते हैं. और अभी का जो चैलेंज है, जो आपने भी हमें हेल्प की है, मुंबई ठाणे एंड मुंबई सिटी सबअर्ब एंड ठाणे में कोविड के बच्चों के लिए, कोविड अफेक्टेड बच्चों के लिए. सो फर्स्टली CNCP और CCL बच्चों के लिए जो CCI में रहते हैं, उनके लिए हम एक पूरा मॉड्यूल ला रहे हैं, जो कि एक साइकोथेरेपिस्ट, एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट और आपके थेरेपिस्ट जो है वो उनके साथ काम करेंगे, CCL बच्चों के साथ. एंड ये बच्चों को एक तो ट्रॉमा से बाहर निकालने के लिए फर्स्टली उनके साथ काम करेंगे, काउंसलर काम करेंगे. उसके बाद जो बाहर से अपॉइंटेड जो साइकोथेरेपिस्ट रहेंगे वो उनके साथ काम करेंगे. और जहाँ जहाँ पे अदर थेरेपीज की ज़रूरत है उनको भी साथ में लिया जाएगा. इसके लिए एक मेंटल हेल्थ ग्रुप जो है वो बनाया गया है, और उनके साथ मिलके, क्योंकि हमारे पास जो होती है, जैसे आपने समझा, लिमिटेशंस हमारी बहुत सारी होती है. एक तो हर तरीके का और बहुत सारा काम होता है. आपके साथ स्पेशलाइज ग्रुप, यू पीपल आर लाइक स्पेशलिस्ट इन साइकोथेरेपिस्ट. सो आपके तरफ बहुत अलग अलग तरीके की मॉड्यूल्स होती है, तो जो हमें हेल्प कर सकती है. इसीलिए अभी हम अर्पण हैं, उसके बाद IPS वेस्ट जोन है, शुश्रूषा करके है, जिन्होंने हमें पूना रीजन में हेल्प की थी सिंगल पेरेंट बच्चों के साथ काम करने के लिए. तो वो है, उनको भी हमने इन्वॉल्व किया. यूनिसेफ हमारे साथ काम कर रही है. तो इन सब को लेके हम एक मॉड्यूल तैयार कर रहे हैं, और उसके ऊपर फिर इन बच्चों के साथ किस तरीके से काम किया जाएगा, और इनको परमानेंटली, मतलब उनका जो ट्रामा है उनसे बाहर निकाल के, क्योंकि CCL बच्चा अगर एक बार भी हमारे हाथ से निकल गया तो वो हम बाद में जाके समाज के लिए बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. तो ये हमें टाइमली समझ लेना है और टाइमली उसको CCL से निकाल लेना है. उसने जो उसके साथ जो भी कुछ हुआ है उसके लिए उसने जो रिएक्शन दी है, तो वो जो उससे कुछ भी छोटा सा चोरी हुआ है, खून हुआ है, रेप हुआ है, उसने जो भी कुछ किया है वो क्यों किया है। क्योंकि हम समझ सकते हैं एक 15, 16, 17, 18 साल का जो बच्चा है वो जब ये हरकत कर रहा है तो डेफिनेटली कुछ तो उसको इंस्टिगेट किया है, या तो किसी ने उसको जानबूझ के ये करने से, या तो उसको एक उत्सुकता है कि हाँ ये क्यों किया, मैं भी करके देखता हूँ, तो उसके साइड इफ़ेक्ट उसको पता नहीं है। तो ये सब हमें बताने पड़ेंगे उसको उससे बाहर लाना पड़ेगा, उसके बाद ही हम लोग उसको मतलब समाज में ला सकते हैं। तो समाज में अगर उसको अच्छी तरीके से हमें लाना है तो उसको ये थेरेपिस्ट की बहुत ज़रूरत है। तो उसके लिए हम लोग CCL के साथ इस तरीके से काम कर रहे हैं, और CNCP के बच्चों के साथ अभी हमारे जो काउंसलर्स है जो ऑलरेडी निमान से अच्छे से ट्रेन हैं, उनको और एक ट्रेनिंग, ग्रिप ट्रेनिंग भी दिया गया है। तो और ट्रेनिंग उनको दे के जो हमारे CNCP बच्चे हैं उनके साथ उनको और जोड़ा जाएगा। एंड मेनली जो इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है, जैसे आपने बोला, और हमने भी जो हमारे बोथ पेरेंट डाइड बच्चों का जो केस किया था उनके साथ भी किया था, हम लोग वीकली फॉलोअप लेते थे। जो हमारे काउंसलर्स है वो और IPS के काउंसलर, हम लोग वीकली ऑनलाइन मीटिंग करते थे और हम लोग उनके चैलेंजेस भी समझ के लेते थे, या तो उनको क्या और पर्टिकुलर केस में कुछ गाइडेंस चाहिए तो वो भी डिस्कस करते थे, या केसेस भी डिस्कस करते थे। केसेस तो सुन के बहुत मतलब हमारे जैसे इंसान भी हिल जाते थे जो केसेस हम सुनते थे, जिस तरीके से वो बच्चा वो ट्रॉमा सह रहा था, ये तो बहुत ही डिफ़िकल्ट बातें थी। तो उस तरीके से रेगुलर फॉलोअप जो है, क्योंकि क्या होता है, हमने अगर एक बार दे दिया और काम चल रहा है तो काम चल रहा है, मगर जब तक मॉनिटरिंग नहीं किया जाएगा, उसका डिस्कशंस नहीं किया जाएगा, तब तक उसका रिज़ल्ट हमें नहीं मिलता है। तो उसके लिए भी कुछ मेथोडोलॉजी डेवलप करके वो किस तरीके से किया जाएगा ये जस्ट अभी चालू हुआ है। तो लेट अस होप आप सबके मदद से ये अच्छी तरीके से हो पाएगा। एंड मैं मेनली बोलना चाहती हूँ, अर्पण के साथ जो हमने ग्रिप काउंसलिंग किया था उसकी ज़रूरत भी किस तरीके से लगी ये मैं बोलना चाहूँगी। जैसे हमने बोथ पेरेंट के लिए तो हमने समझ लिया था ये बच्चे बहुत बड़े ट्रॉमा में हैं और इनको काउंसलिंग की ज़रूरत है, और उसके लिए हमारी सिस्टम डेवलप हो गई थी। और उसके बाद कोइंसिडेंटली अर्पण हैज़ कॉन्टैक्टेड अस एंड आल्सो शुश्रूषा हैज़ कॉन्टैक्टेड अस एंड द जर्नी बिगैन्स। एंड आई थिंक जो भी बच्चे, मुझे लगता है हमारे पास आज के तारीख में बच्चे हैं 29,000 बच्चे हैं जिन्होंने single parent and both parent died. These are the figures of only 0 to 18 years old. And in this, बोलते हुए भी बहुत तकलीफ होती है, इसमें near about 26,000 women are there who lost their husband, who lost their bread and butter earner. And it's a very big challenge, not for only WCD department, but it is the challenge for our society also. And that's why I'll request all of you, जहाँ जहाँ पे भी हमें possible है, वहाँ पे हम not only for these childrens, we need the counseling for that mothers also. कोइंसिडेंटली हमारे डिपार्टमेंट ने एक हमारी एक्स मिनिस्टर जो थी उन्होंने मिशन वात्सल्य प्रोजेक्ट जो है वो चालू किया था। उसमें मिशन वात्सल्य महाराष्ट्र में बोलूँगी क्योंकि मिशन वात्सल्य ICPS स्कीम को भी बोला जाता है। ये मिशन वात्सल्य महाराष्ट्र का स्कीम जो है उसमें ऑल दो स्कीम जो है विडोज़ के लिए या बच्चों के लिए, वो स्कीम को एक जगह पे लाया गया है और उनका बेनिफिट वो बच्चों को दिया जा रहा है या नहीं वो देखा जा रहा है। उसके लिए तालुका लेवल पे कमेटी है, वो तहसीलदार उसका चेयरपर्सन है और बाकी सब लोग हैं। तो ये भी हम देख रहे हैं, मगर वहाँ पे भी एक मिसिंग पार्ट है जो कि मेंटल हेल्थ है। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये हम लोग WCD डिपार्टमेंट खाली नहीं कर पाएगा। तो आज जोया मैम भी यहाँ पे है, तो मैं ये चांस लेना चाहूँगी और उनको रिक्वेस्ट करूँगी कि मतलब यहाँ पे भी हम अगर ध्यान देंगे, डिस्ट्रिक्ट पे, तालुका पे ये करना बहुत ज़रूरी है। क्योंकि ये जो विडोज़ है उन्होंने उनके ब्रेड अर्नर को खोया हुआ है, उनके सामने बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है कि मैं ये घर कैसे चलाऊंगी। उनके सामने प्रॉब्लम है कि बच्चों को एजुकेशन कैसे करें। हम लोग कर रहे हैं कोशिश, जहाँ जहाँ से पॉसिबल होगा उसको उनके लिए एजुकेशन हेल्प करने के लिए कोशिश कर रहे हैं, मगर वो खाली सफिशिएंट नहीं है। तो और मेंटल हेल्थ, एक बार अगर मन ठान लेना कि नहीं हमें ये करना है, हम लोग ये कर सकते हैं, तो मुझे लगता है ये हो जाएगा। तो इसीलिए वो जो लेडी है उसको हम ये ट्रॉमा से कैसे बाहर ला सकते हैं, एंड शी विल डू, ये उसका कॉन्फिडेंस उसका अगर हम दे सकते हैं, तो उसके लिए अगर मैम हम लोग कुछ कोशिश करते हैं सेंट्रल लेवल पे, अगर कुछ प्रोग्राम लेना चाहते हैं तो मैं आपको रिक्वेस्ट करूँगी। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Well, thank you so much, Manisha ma'am. I think two really important points that I took away from what you said. One, that, you know, working with children in conflict with law is extremely critical, because if we don't, then like you said, once they go out of the institution, there's going to be again something. And, you know, we would love to work with you on that. Arpan's extremely committed to working with children who've sexually misbehaved or offended, whatever terminology we want to use. We've done 2 rounds of work with 2 groups of children over the last 3 years, and it's been extremely full of learning and insights. There have been logistical challenges in reaching the goals that we wanted to, and we would love to brainstorm with you and see how can we work together on this, because we completely agree that that group of children really needs to be addressed. And if you're working on the issue of child sexual abuse in any capacity, it's so critical to work on primary prevention. Even through our school program, we work with all the adolescents' children who've indulged in either inappropriate peer touching or in sexual bullying, because if we don't plug it in there, it's just going to continue. And of course, the other point that you made about, you know, addressing what women have gone through, and that's a huge, shocking number that you shared, ma'am. And I'm hoping that, you know, there'll be support for them. We've worked with a lot of family members in helping and talking to them with the psychoeducation that we've provided. But I completely agree that it was a very difficult time and continues to be a difficult time for many families. So here's hoping that we would all be able to work together and you know, address this. So thank you so much, ma'am, for all those insights. Dr. Zoya, do you want to sort of come in here and talk about, anything else that you think that needs to be done to address sexual violence or abuse amongst children and adolescents?
I would, okay, since I have to kind of wrap up what they have said, so I will just mention that for addressing sexual violence among children, we have to always have a multi-pronged strategy. It cannot be just through schools, which we're doing using teachers, informing children, informing parents through the PTA structure, all the school management committee. So we have to also look at the other programs concurrently which are running. So say we have the peer educator program under adolescent health, in which we have adolescent health and wellness days. So these are also going to be platforms for creating awareness within the other stakeholders. So these adolescent health and wellness days will address child sexual abuse involving parents, the PRI members, the ASHA, the ANM, the Anganwadi. So it's going to be a whole of community approach. So all this is kind of has been suggested to the states. Because after all, what we say is whether it's education or health, it is the state subject. So they decide on which they want to stress on. But these is the kind of support which you're already giving to states. Thirdly, I would like to say is that, of course, like I mentioned, the capacity building of the healthcare provider. That is, I think, for health person, that is a very major part in which we need to build capacities of the, not just the first responder who is looking at the case, but the referral level also. So that has to be built into the health system. And as whatever our training material we have updated, we have internalized and we have kind of finalized the material which includes child sexual abuse in all our updated training material, whether for counselors or for medical officers. And lastly, I would say we are also working with the Ministry of Youth Affairs, in which they have a whole set which is called the NEET, neither in education, nor in employment, nor in training. So there's a whole chunk of people with which we are talking to Moyas, to say that we can use them for creating awareness within their own age group, right? So that is something also which we have just, in fact, that has just started last week only, we had a meeting. So we have to involve this group, and this may be a male or a female. So many times we end up giving women, either we give them IFA, we give them sanitary napkins, or if they're pregnant, they get the antenatal care. So we're missing a lot on the women who don't need any of this, right? The other females. And even, and sadly, for a lot of young male, we don't have any programs, again, except for IFA tablets, or for other health education. So we need to have some programs. CSA is just, I'll be honest here, will be one part of what the training will entail, but we need to give them health and wellness information, because as they appear healthy and well, so they need to be told how to continue staying healthy, and again awareness about these very critical issues which they can internalize themselves and grow up as maybe more responsible adults and have the same peer-to-peer learning also. Because what I think data, I will not say, but I would say a lot of studies have very broadly showed that peer-to-peer learning really helps in this young age group. So if we tap into this, if we use this whole, because what we are looking now is creating what we call a registry, a peer registry with using of Ministry of Youth Affairs. So if we have a registry which every state enters that, okay, we have, say, whatever number, n number of young people who are available to be trained, and then hopefully they will work within the communities where they are, where they're not educating, not working, but they can create this awareness. That is something which we want to tap into now, because who are educating will hopefully be covered through schools and through colleges. Who are working will actually have access to some kind of healthcare, who are in any kind of training, maybe trained separately, but this whole NEET thing is something which we are looking as a ministry to work with that. So I think rest I've already mentioned, so I will not repeat.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I feel like saying Ayushman Bhava for the Ayushman Bharat program that ma'am is leading, which is actually a massive, massive program. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say the numbers, but it's like, it's really massive. And like she mentioned in her keynote address, almost 235,000 teachers across the country have been trained. And we can all just imagine what that's going to lead to when it's already reaching children, and soon in a year's time, I'm sure we'll have the numbers. पर करोड़ों बच्चों तक ये पहुँचने वाला है, and so glad कि ये life skills हम provide कर रहे हैं. हम कई बार सोचते हैं दूसरे देशों में कितना काम हो रहा है. मैं कहती हूँ भारत में जितना काम हो रहा है किसी देश में नहीं हो रहा है. Actually, I have traveled the world, I've been at international conferences, but the kind of work our government is doing at the state and national level, I haven't seen any country do it, really. And I'm just so proud, and I think each one of us in this room can feel proud of the amount of work our Indian government is doing, really. And I'm not saying this because she's the chief guest, and she's our guest as well, our eminent guest, and to make them happy. I am genuinely saying that. And even when I go to these conferences, I look at even just the non-profit sector, not just the government. I tell you, I feel very proud about how evolved our non-profit sector is in the country. The kind of monitoring, the kind of evaluations we're doing, the kind of innovative solutions we are coming up as a country to solve problems at scale is just fabulous. So I think there's just, it's really important to celebrate all the good work happening around us. And I'm so glad that today we could come together to talk about it, to share. And, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Thank you for this conversation as well. I think I really enjoyed it as well. And on this special moment for us today, as you can see, मैं 100 watt के bulb के तरह beam कर रही हूँ with joy and pride. And I know the entire Arpan team is too. Just a few thoughts for me to share. As we continue on this journey, Arpan is committed to learning and sharing with the world what we learn. I hope this handbook is useful to all of you. What we would love to hear from you is get some feedback, what your thoughts were on it. If you thought that there is something that we should elaborate more, we would love to hear from you. Or if you think we should add some more case examples, we would love to do that. Neha did say that it's not meant to be a very exhaustive handbook, but if we see commonality in the feedback that comes to us, we would love to make more changes to it. I'm not looking at the content curriculum team and the healing team. They will kill me. We were already working on so many projects. We were just adding another one. But I'll take the chance. There are way too many children and adults to heal. We all have a lot of work to do. A huge shout out to all you therapists here today. What you do is very difficult work, and without you, these healing journeys would be very difficult. And so a huge thank you to all of you. Personally, for me, I can't see myself thriving had it not been for therapy and my therapist, Veena, who is here today, who's been a tremendous support, facilitator, guide, and who's always been there for me whenever I needed her. So thank you, Veena, for who you are and all the love and care, for showing the mirror to me and letting me fall, learn, pick myself up, and fly again. I love you to the moon and back and more. It's been 13 years of therapy for me, and I can so proudly and joyfully say that it was one of the best decisions I've taken. Yes, it can sometimes be tough. It can sometimes mean pain. But when you emerge on the other side, it's a different you. Happier, resilient, empowered, content, and somewhat at peace. I've been a huge proponent of therapy and can't stop doing it today as well. I think my team will vouch for that. Those who've been thinking of it but haven't started it, go for it. Really, it's more than worth the journey. Arpan officially completes 15 years on 12th November, just a few days away from here, 2022. Yeah. Thank you. हमने last year भी celebrate किया. उस समय था अरे कोविड है पता नहीं हम सब बचेंगे कि नहीं सेलिब्रेट कर लेते क्योंकि वैसे तो जर्नी 2006 में शुरू हुई थी बट वी रजिस्टर्ड एज अ ट्रस्ट इन 2007 सो इन 2022 नवंबर वी कंप्लीट 15 years एंड सो it's again a milestone and हमको तो एक कारण चाहिए सेलिब्रेट करने का. It's been an absolutely amazing journey. Right, Arpan team? Yes. And we can't stop getting up every day, coming to work, sorting through new challenges, and make our way onto paths never traveled before. With a lot of light and love, as we continue to work diligently in helping protect millions of children from sexual abuse and help heal those who've experienced it. One of our advisors once said this to us: we have some special neurotransmitters put inside us. ऑफ बटन नहीं है, वी आर ऑल द टाइम ऑन, कभी बंद नहीं होता, ऑप्शन ही नहीं है बंद होने का. सो वी कंटिन्यू टू डू दैट, राइट? कैन द एंटायर अर्पन टीम स्टैंड अप? या, ग्रेट. लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, दिस इज अर्पन टीम. Yeah, and every team, every person in the team is playing their part in what you see today and in the daily work that we do. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all the appreciation. I do want to take this opportunity also to thank all our co-travelers on this journey, our funders, partners, advisors, and everyone else who's cheering us on and supporting us. We as a team truly appreciate it, along with our board members. Looking forward to this continued journey, many more milestones, and helping children have trauma-free childhoods. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for those wonderful words. It was a lovely conversation, full of insights, takeaways for each one of you, I'm sure. Now, I request our board members, Ms. Achama Matthew and Mr. Abhishek Mukherjee, to kindly come up on stage and give a token of appreciation to our chief guest, Dr. Zoya, and Ms. Manisha Biraris. Can we have a huge round of applause, please? I also request Ms. Pooja Taparia and Anupriya to kindly hand over a token of appreciation to Ms. Sonali Gupta. Thank you so much once again for being here today. May I request our esteemed guests to kindly proceed towards Arpan's resources desk, where we have a little something for you. Copies of a handbook are placed for you to pick them up, and you can also go and pick a few other resources which are placed on the table. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm your host, Neha, signing off for the evening. Have a great evening ahead.